An unexpected applicant. The crystalline spires of Galactic University glittered against the violet sky of Centauri Prime, their translucent facades refracting the light of 3 suns. Within the Grand Council chamber, Dean Thylox's tentacles rippled with agitation as he addressed the assembled faculty. Esteemed colleagues, the cephalopodian began, his skin shifting through a spectrum of colors. We face an unprecedented situation. For the first time in our illustrious history, we have received an application from a human. A chorus of gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. Professor Zixik, an insectoid arthropon, clicked her mandibles in disapproval. Surely this is a mistake. Humans are barely considered a spacefaring species. Their inclusion would tarnish our reputation. Dean Thylox's skin flushed a deep purple. I assure you, there is no mistake. The applicant, one Zara Chen, has passed all our preliminary exams with scores that rival our top students. Her application is most intriguing. He gestured with a tentacle, and a holographic display flickered to life in the center of the chamber. It showed a young human female with dark hair and determined eyes. Data scrolled beside her image, detailing academic achievements that seemed impossible for a species so new to the galactic stage. Professor Lumi, a bioluminescent Aquarian, leaned forward, her fins quivering with interest. Fascinating. The human brain, while primitive, seems capable of remarkable cognitive leaps. Perhaps there is merit in studying this specimen up close. Specimen? Scoffed Zixik. You speak as if we're admitting a laboratory animal. This is a university, not a zoo. The debate raged for hours, with faculty members arguing passionately for and against Zara's admission. Some saw it as an opportunity to study human potential, while others feared it would lower the university's standards. As the final sun began to set, Dean Thylox called for a vote. By a narrow margin, he announced, his skin now a swirling mix of blue and gold. The motion to admit Zara Chen has passed. May the cosmic intelligences guide us in this unprecedented venture. Weeks later, Zara stood at the base of those gleaming spires, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and terror. The acceptance holo-message had been clear. She was the first human ever admitted to Galactic University. The weight of her species' reputation rested squarely on her shoulders. As she approached the entrance, a shimmer in the air coalesced into a translucent, vaguely humanoid shape, an AI guide. Welcome, Zara Chen of Earth, it intoned in a melodious voice. Please proceed to the central atrium for orientation. Zara took a deep breath and stepped forward. The doors, sensing her approach, arised open with a soft hum. She entered a vast, otherworldly space that defied Euclidean geometry. Alien students of countless species milled about, their conversations a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses. All activity ceased as Zara entered. Hundreds of eyes, optical sensors, and other sensory organs turned to stare at the newcomer. Zara felt her face flush under the scrutiny, but she held her head high. She hadn't come this far to be intimidated now. A Volpexi student, fox-like with 6 limbs and iridescent fur, approached her. So, it said, its universal translator rendering its yips and growls into standard galactic. You're the human. Smaller than I expected. Are you fully grown, or still a larval form? Zara bit back a sharp retort, reminding herself that genuine curiosity, not malice, likely motivated the question. I'm fully grown, she replied with a smile. Humans come in various sizes, but I'm about average. The Volpexi cocked its head, all 3 eyes blinking in sequence. Fascinating. And your brain? Is it true it's not even quantum-enabled? How do you manage complex calculations? Before Zara could respond, a melodious tone echoed through the atrium. The AI guide reappeared. All new students, please proceed to your assigned orientation groups. Zara Chen, you have been assigned to Special Integration Group Alpha. Please follow the illuminated path. A line of soft blue light appeared on the floor. Zara nodded to the Volpexi and followed the path, acutely aware of the whispers and stares that followed her. She was led to a small chamber where 3 other aliens waited, a towering crystalline being that seemed to phase in and out of reality, a gelatinous mass that pulsed with inner light, and a creature that looked like a sentient cloud of gas. "Greetings," the crystalline being said, its voice resonating directly in Zara's mind. "I am Zixel, a Temporian. Like you, we are considered unusual additions to the university." The gelatinous being burbled, its translator rendering the sounds as, "I'm Glop, a Memoran. We store information in our cellular structure. The university is very interested in our mnemonic abilities." The gas cloud swirled, forming vaguely facial features. "Mist of dawn over still waters, nebulite, pleased to meet you. We exist partially in another dimension. It makes lab work interesting." Zara introduced herself, feeling a mix of relief and trepidation. She wasn't the only oddity here, but that didn't make the challenge ahead any less daunting. A holographic instructor flickered into existence. "Welcome, Special Integration Group Alpha. Your presence here represents Galactic University's commitment to diversity and the pursuit of knowledge across all sapient species. Over the next solar cycle, we will work to acclimate you to the university's unique challenges and opportunities." As the orientation began, Zara's mind raced with questions and possibilities. She had dreamed of this moment, of being among the stars and learning secrets of the universe. But she had never imagined feeling quite so alien. The instructor droned on about metabolic accommodations and psychic shielding protocols. Zara's attention, however, was drawn to a window overlooking the campus grounds. A group of students were engaged in what appeared to be a game, manipulating gravity and probability to keep a multidimensional object aloft. Zara smiled to herself. She might not be able to bend space-time yet, but she had other skills to offer. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its adaptability, its ability to find unconventional solutions to impossible problems. "I belong here," Zara whispered to herself, squaring her shoulders, "and I'm going to prove it." As the orientation continued, Zara felt a growing sense of determination. She might be the first human at Galactic University, but she was determined not to be the last. The adventure of a lifetime was just beginning, and Zara Chen was ready to show the galaxy what humanity could do. Certainly, here's part 2 of Alien Academia, the unforeseen impact of a human girl's arrival. Part 2, Culture Shock and Adaptation. Zara's first week at Galactic University was a whirlwind of sensory overload and cognitive dissonance. The campus itself seemed to defy the laws of physics as she understood them, with buildings that shifted and rearranged themselves based on the academic needs of the moment. Gravity was more of a suggestion than a rule, and time flowed differently in various parts of the campus to optimize learning efficiency. In her Introduction to Multiversal Mathematics class, Zara found herself struggling to keep up. The arthropon professor, Zixik, seemed to take a particular delight in highlighting her shortcomings. "Miss Chen," Zixik clicked, her compound eyes gleaming. "Perhaps you'd like to solve this simple 11-dimensional equation for the class." Zara stared at the holographic formula hovering in the air, its symbols twisting in ways that made her eyes water. She took a deep breath, remembering her father's advice. When you can't compete on their terms, change the game. "I'm afraid I can't solve it as presented, Professor," Zara admitted. The class buzzed with whispers and chirps of derision. "However," she continued, "I believe I can demonstrate an alternative approach that might be of interest." Ignoring the skeptical looks, Zara stepped up to the holoprojector. She input a series of commands, and the equation transformed into a 3-dimensional model. "While I can't process 11 dimensions simultaneously," Zara explained, her voice gaining confidence, "I can break the problem down into manageable parts and solve them iteratively. It's less elegant, but the result is the same." She manipulated the model, solving each component in turn. As she worked, the class fell silent. Even Zixik's mandibles stilled in surprise. When Zara finished, the final answer glowed in the air, matching a one in the professor's notes. There was a moment of stunned silence before Glop, the memorand student, burbled excitedly. "Fascinating," Glop exclaimed. The human brain's ability to contextualize and simplify complex problems could have significant applications in practical problem-solving scenarios. Zix's antennae twitched in what Zara hoped was approval. An unconventional approach, Miss Chen, but effective. Perhaps there is hope for you yet. As the weeks progressed, Zara found her unique human perspective increasingly valuable. In xenobiology and comparative anatomy, her ability to think laterally led to innovative insights. During one particularly challenging lab, students were tasked with designing a universal medical scanner capable of diagnosing ailments across multiple species. While her classmates focused on creating ever more complex quantum sensors, Zara took a different approach. She combined simple, robust technologies with an adaptive AI system that could learn and adjust to new physiologies on the fly. "You see," she explained to her lab partner, Zixel the Temporian, "the strength of this design is its flexibility. Instead of trying to account for every possible species, it adapts and learns with each use." Zixel's crystalline form shimmered with interest. A most elegant solution. It embodies the human trait of thinking outside the box, does it not? Zara grinned. "Exactly. Sometimes the best way forward isn't the most advanced technology, but the smartest application of what you have." Their project earned top marks and caught the attention of Professor Lumi, the Aquarian xenobiologist. After class, she approached Zara, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with excitement. "Miss Chen, your work is most impressive. I believe your human intuition could be invaluable in an upcoming research project. Would you be interested in joining my team?" Zara's heart soared. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she had hoped for. "I'd be honored, Professor Lumi." However, not everyone was thrilled with Zara's growing success. Crix, a Voltron student known for his brilliance and arrogance in equal measure, watched her with narrowed eyes that crackled with bioelectrical energy. "Don't let it go to your head, human," he sneered after overhearing Lumi's offer. "You're still a primitive species playing catch-up. This fascination with your quaint approaches will fade once the novelty wears off." Zara felt her cheeks burn, but she held her ground. "We'll see about that, Crix. Maybe you could learn a thing or two from us primitives if you opened your mind a bit." As she walked away, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that she had just made a powerful enemy. But she couldn't afford to dwell on it. Professor Lumi's project awaited, and with it, a chance to truly prove herself. The research lab was a marvel of alien technology. Holographic displays flickered with data streams, and strange organisms pulsed and writhed in containment fields. Professor Lumi's tentacles danced over control panels as she briefed the team. "We're studying a newly discovered extremophile species from the methane oceans of Titan," Lumi explained. "Our goal is to understand its unique biochemistry and potential applications in hostile environment colonization." Zara listened intently, her mind already racing with ideas. As the only human on the team, she felt the pressure to contribute something meaningful. Over the next few weeks, Zara threw herself into the project. She spent long hours in the lab, often forgetting to eat or sleep. Her human circadian rhythm struggled to adapt to the 37-hour Centauri day, but she pushed through the exhaustion. One night, as she pored over data readouts, Zara noticed an anomaly. The extremophiles seemed to be communicating through subtle chemical exchanges, forming complex patterns that reminded her of something. With a jolt of excitement, she realized it was similar to the way neurons fired in the human brain. Could these microscopic organisms be forming a kind of collective intelligence? Zara worked feverishly to document her findings, cross-referencing with Earth's studies on neural networks and emergent behavior. When she presented her theory to Professor Lumi, the Aquarian's skin flashed with patterns of joy and astonishment. "This is groundbreaking, Zara," Lumi exclaimed. "If you're right, it could revolutionize our understanding of collective consciousness and biocomputing." The team redoubled their efforts, with Zora's insights leading the way. As they prepared to publish their findings, however, disaster struck. A power surge destabilized the containment fields, and the extremophile samples began to rapidly multiply and evolve. Alarms blared as the lab went into lockdown. Zora watched in horror as the organisms began to coalesce into larger, more complex forms. Her mind raced, connecting dots that others might miss. "Professor," she shouted over the din, "I think I know how to stop them, but you have to trust me." As chaos erupted around them and the threat of a full-scale outbreak loomed, Zora prepared to put everything she had learned to the test. The fate of the university, and perhaps the galaxy, now rested in very human hands. The viral threat. The lab was in chaos. Alarms blared as the extrenophiles now evolved into a swirling, iridescent mist, pressed against the weakening containment field. Zora's mind raced, piecing together everything she had learned about the organisms. "Professor Lumi," she shouted over the cacophony, "we need to introduce a signal disruptor. The organisms are coordinating through quantum entanglement. If we break that link, they'll lose cohesion." Lumi's tentacles flew over the control panel. "Brilliant, Zora. But our standard disruptors aren't calibrated for this life form. We need a human brain." Zora interrupted, a wild idea forming. "Our neural patterns, they're chaotic enough to interfere with their coordination." Without waiting for approval, Zora sprinted to the neural interface station. It was designed for delicate experiments, not as an impromptu weapon, but she had no choice. She slammed the interface helmet onto her head and activated the system. Pain lanced through her skull as her brainwaves were amplified and broadcast. The mist of evolved extremophiles writhed and recoiled. For a moment, it seemed to be working. Then Zora's vision blurred, and she felt herself slipping into unconsciousness. When she awoke, Zora found herself in the medical bay, surrounded by concerned faces. Professor Lumi hovered nearby, her bioluminescence pulsing with worry. "You did it, Zora," Lumi said softly. "Your quick thinking saved us all, but I'm afraid there were complications." As Lumi explained, Zora's heart sank. While her plan had worked, dispersing the evolved extremophiles, it had come at a cost. Some of the organisms had bonded with her on a cellular level. She was now a carrier of a potentially deadly alien microbe. "We've managed to stabilize your condition," Lumi continued, "but we don't know how this will affect you long-term. More importantly, we don't know if you're contagious." Zora sat up, her head spinning. "So what happens now?" Dean Tylock stepped forward, his skin a somber gray. "I'm afraid we have no choice but to place you in quarantine, Ms. Chen, for your safety and the safety of the entire university." The next few days were a blur of tests and isolation. Zora was moved to a specially prepared containment unit, cut off from direct contact with her peers and professors. She attended classes via holographic projection, but it wasn't the same. The fear and suspicion in her classmates' eyes were painfully clear, even through the holographic interface. As news of the incident spread, panic began to grip the campus. Rumors flew about the dangerous human who had unleashed an alien plague. Some students called for Zora's immediate expulsion, while others demanded more drastic measures. Crix, the Volterum student, was particularly vocal. "This is what happens when we allow primitive species into our hallowed halls," he declared to anyone who would listen. "The human should be removed from the university immediately, for all our safety." But even as fear and prejudice swirled around her, Zora refused to give up. She dedicated every waking moment to studying the microbes that now lived within her. If she could understand them, perhaps she could find a way to neutralize them, not just for herself, but for anyone who might be infected. Her determination caught the attention of an unlikely ally. Dr. Xanthara, a reclusive arachnid xenopathologist, reached out to offer assistance. "Your situation is unprecedented, Miss Chen," Dr. Xanthara clicked through the comm system. but it presents a unique opportunity to study xenobiotic integration. With your permission, I'd like to work with you on finding a solution. Zara eagerly agreed, grateful for any help, and the chance to continue her research, even in isolation. Together, they began to unravel the mysteries of the extremophile microbes. As days turned to weeks, Zara made a startling discovery. The microbes weren't simply coexisting with her cells, they were enhancing them. Her immune system was operating at unprecedented levels, and her cognitive functions showed marked improvement. It's a symbiotic relationship, she explained to Dr. Zanthara during one of their video conferences. The microbes are adapting to human physiology, and in turn, they're optimizing our biological processes. Dr. Zanthara's mandibles clicked excitedly. Fascinating, but we must be cautious. What benefits you might harm other species? We need more data. Their breakthrough came just in time. A new crisis was unfolding beyond Zara's quarantine walls. Students and faculty were falling ill with a mysterious ailment that baffled the medical staff. Symptoms varied wildly between species, but all showed signs of rapid cellular degradation. From her isolation, Zara watched helplessly as the university went into lockdown. Classes were suspended, and panic spread faster than the disease itself. She knew in her gut that this outbreak was connected to the extremophiles, and that she might hold the key to stopping it. Dr. Zanthara, she said urgently during their next call, I think I know what's happening. The extremophiles that bonded with me, they must have mutated when they came into contact with the quantum disruptor field. What's spreading now is a highly adaptable virus derived from those mutated microbes. The arachnid scientist's eyes widened. Yes, that would explain the varied symptoms and rapid transmission. But how can we stop it? Zara took a deep breath. We fight fire with fire. The symbiotic microbes in my system, they've adapted to work with my immune system. If we can isolate and replicate that process, we could create a universal vaccine, Dr. Zanthara finished. But the risk, Zara, using your altered biology as a base for treatment could be seen as highly unethical. And if something goes wrong? We don't have a choice, Zara insisted. People are dying. I'm willing to take that risk. With the reluctant approval of Dean Axelox and the Medical Ethics Board, Zara became the center of a desperate race against time. Her quarantine unit was converted into a makeshift research lab, with Dr. Zanthara coordinating efforts from the outside. Days blurred together as Zara worked tirelessly, her enhanced cognitive abilities pushing her to new limits. She barely slept, subsisting on nutrient injections and sheer determination. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they had a prototype vaccine ready for testing. As Zara prepared to be the first test subject, she couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought her here. She had come to Galactic University to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. Now, the fate of the entire institution, and perhaps beyond, rested on her shoulders. As the injection entered her veins, Zara closed her eyes and hoped that her human adaptability would be enough to save them all. The universe, it seemed, had a strange sense of humor. In trying to fit in, Zara had become irrevocably unique, and in that uniqueness lay the potential salvation for an entire community of diverse species. As the vaccine took effect, Zara allowed herself a small smile. Whatever happened next, she had certainly made her mark on Galactic University. Unlikely allies. As Zara's body absorbed the prototype vaccine, the entire medical team held their breath. Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours. Suddenly, Zara gasped, her eyes flying open. I can feel it working, she stammered, her voice filled with awe. It's like I can sense every cell in my body. Dr. Zanthara's mandibles clicked rapidly in excitement. Remarkable. Your vital signs are stabilizing, and the symbiotic microbes appear to be replicating at a controlled rate. But we must proceed with caution. We need to test the vaccine on other species before we can distribute it widely. News of the potential breakthrough spread quickly through the quarantined university. Hope blossomed, But so did controversy. Many were wary of a cure derived from human biology, especially one that incorporated the very organisms that had caused the outbreak. Crix, ever the vocal opponent, rallied a group of students against the proposed treatment. "This is madness," he declared, his bioelectrical field crackling with anger. "We cannot trust our lives to an untested human concoction. It could be a ploy to infect us all." Despite the opposition, volunteers from various species came forward, driven by desperation and the worsening condition of their infected peers. Zara worked tirelessly with Dr. Xanthara and a hastily assembled research team to adapt the vaccine for different physiologies. It was during this frantic period that Zara found an unexpected ally in Glop, the Memorum student. Glop's unique cellular structure made them an ideal test subject for rapid prototyping. "My species can isolate and replicate specific cellular memories," Glop burbled excitedly. "We can test multiple vaccine iterations simultaneously without risk of cross-contamination." With Glop's help, the team made rapid progress. Each successful adaptation boosted morale and brought them closer to a universal solution. But time was running out. The virus was mutating, becoming more aggressive with each passing day. Zara barely slept, pushing her enhanced cognitive abilities to their limits. She coordinated with researchers across the university, drawing on expertise from every field. Zixel, the Temporian, provided crucial insights into the virus's temporal properties, while Mist of Dawn over still waters contributed knowledge of extra-dimensional microbiology. As they neared a breakthrough, disaster struck. The power grid, strained by the increased demand from medical equipment and containment fields, failed catastrophically. Emergency systems kicked in, but vital research data was lost in the surge. Panic ensued as quarantine barriers flickered, threatening to unleash the virus across the entire campus. In the chaos, Zara made a bold decision. "We need to release the vaccine now," she insisted to a shocked Dr. Xanthara. "It's not perfect, but it's our only chance to contain this before it spreads further." "But the risk," Dr. Xanthara began, "is less than the certainty of what will happen if we do nothing," Zara finished firmly. With the reluctant approval of Dean Asilox, the order was given. The imperfect but promising vaccine was distributed via the university's atmospheric control systems. Every being on campus, infected or not, was exposed. The next 48 hours were tense. Zara and her team worked around the clock, monitoring the vaccine's effects across a dizzying array of species. There were complications. Some students experienced mild allergic reactions, others temporary physiological changes, but slowly, impossibly, it became clear. The vaccine was working. Infection rates plateaued, then began to drop. Those already ill showed signs of improvement. A cautious optimism began to spread through the quarantined population. But not everyone was celebrating. Crix, furious that his warnings had been ignored, led a group of dissenters in protest. They barricaded themselves in one of the research labs, refusing the vaccine and demanding to be evacuated from the contaminated university. Zara knew she had to act. Despite the risks to her own health, she was still adjusting to the symbiotic microbes in her system. She approached the barricaded lab. "Crix," she called through the sealed door, "I know you're scared. We all are. But we're stronger together than we are divided. Please, let me explain how the vaccine works. If you still don't trust it after that, I'll find a way to get you safely off campus." There was a long pause. Then, slowly, the door slid open. Crix stood there, his bioelectrical field dim with exhaustion and fear. "Why should we trust you?" he demanded, but his voice lacked its usual venom. Zara took a deep breath. "Because despite our differences, we're all part of this university. We're here to learn, to grow, to challenge our preconceptions. This virus doesn't care about species or status. It's a threat to all of us, and the only way we'll beat it is together." Her words seemed to resonate not just with Crix, but with the other dissenters as well. One by one, they agreed to hear her out. As Zara explained the science behind the vaccine, drawing on holographic models and raw data, she could see the change in their expressions. Fear gave way to understanding, then to cautious hope. By the time she finished, Crick's opposition had crumbled. I may have misjudged you, human," he admitted grudgingly. "Your methods are unorthodox, but I cannot argue with the results." As the last holdouts accepted the vaccine, a palpable sense of relief washed over the campus. The crisis wasn't over. There were still many hurdles to overcome. But for the first time since the outbreak began, there was a real sense that they would get through this. In the days that followed, Zara found herself at the center of a transformed social dynamic. Species that had once viewed her with suspicion or disdain now sought her out, eager to learn more about human problem-solving and adaptability. Even Crix, much to everyone's surprise, became one of her staunchest supporters. "The human approach to crisis management is intriguing," he admitted during a xenobiology seminar. "Perhaps there is value in studying less advanced civilizations after all." As the university slowly returned to normal operations, Zara reflected on how much had changed. She had come to Galactic University to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. In facing this crisis, she had done more than that. She had shown that diversity, in all its forms, was not just to be tolerated, but celebrated. The symbiotic microbes that now lived within her were a constant reminder of this truth. Different species working in harmony could achieve things that neither could alone. It was a lesson that extended far beyond biology, one that Zara hoped would resonate throughout the galaxy. As she prepared for her next class, Zara smiled to herself. The adventure was far from over, but she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. At Galactic University, every day brought new opportunities to learn, to grow, and to bridge the vast distances between worlds. A new understanding. As the immediate crisis subsided, Galactic University found itself at a crossroads. The events of the past weeks had shaken the institution to its core, challenging long-held beliefs and forcing a revaluation of interspecies relations. At the center of this paradigm shift was Zara Chen, the human student whose unconventional methods had saved countless lives. Dean Thylox called an all-hands meeting in the Grand Amphitheater, its reality-bending architecture accommodating species of all shapes and sizes. As Zara took her seat, she couldn't help but notice the changed atmosphere. Where once she had felt isolated, now she was greeted with nods of respect and even a few tentative smiles. "Esteemed faculty and students," Dean Thylox began, his tentacles rippling with a mix of emotions, "we have emerged from one of the greatest challenges in our university's history. It is time we address the lessons learned and chart our path forward." The dean's gaze settled on Zara. "Miss Chen, your actions during this crisis have been nothing short of extraordinary. You have demonstrated that innovation often comes from unexpected sources, and that diversity is not just a noble ideal, but a practical necessity." A wave of approving murmurs swept through the crowd. Zara felt her cheeks flush with a mix of pride and embarrassment. "Therefore," Xylox continued, "I am announcing a series of reforms to our admission and curriculum policies. We will be actively seeking students from a wider range of species, including those previously considered too primitive for our institution." This announcement was met with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Professor Zixik, who had once been one of Zara's harshest critics, raised a claw. "Dean Thylox, while I cannot deny the value Miss Chen has brought to our university, how can we maintain our academic standards if we open our doors so widely?" It was Crix, to everyone's surprise, who answered. The Voltron student stood, his bioelectrical field pulsing with conviction. "With all due respect, Professor, I believe we need to redefine our understanding of academic standards. This crisis has shown us that true intelligence and innovation come in many forms. By diversifying our student body, we only stand to gain." Zara couldn't help but smile at Crix's transformation. It was a powerful testament to the change that had swept through the university. As the meeting continued, plans were laid out for new interdisciplinary programs, exchange initiatives with less advanced worlds, and research projects focused on leveraging diverse biological and cognitive approaches to solve galactic-scale problems. Zara found herself at the forefront of many of these initiatives. Her unique status as a human carrying symbiotic alien microbes made her a bridge between worlds in more ways than one. She worked closely with Dr. Xanthara to develop new medical technologies based on the adaptive properties of the extremophiles. Their research promised to revolutionize treatments for a wide range of species. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. As news of Galactic University's reforms spread, they faced backlash from conservative elements in the broader galactic community. Some threatened to pull funding, arguing that the institution was lowering its standards and potentially exposing advanced knowledge to unready species. Zara found herself thrust into the role of ambassador, not just for humanity, but for the very idea of inclusive education. She spoke at conferences, gave interviews to interstellar media, and even testified before the Galactic Council. "The universe is vast and full of wonders," she told the assembled dignitaries, her voice steady despite her nerves. "But its greatest resource is the diversity of life and thought. By bringing together beings from across the cosmos, we create a synergy that is greater than the sum of its parts. This is the true path to advancement, not just for individual species, but for all of us." Her words, broadcast across thousands of worlds, struck a chord. Slowly but surely, support began to build for Galactic University's new direction. Back on campus, the changes were already bearing fruit. New students from previously underrepresented species brought fresh perspectives to age-old problems. In one memorable xenobiology class, a silicon-based life form's unique perception of molecular structures led to a breakthrough in understanding protein folding across diverse biochemistries. Zara's own research continued to evolve. The symbiotic microbes in her system had stabilized, granting her enhanced cognitive abilities and a remarkable immune system. But more importantly, they allowed her to interface with alien biology in ways never before possible. She became a living bridge between species, able to translate complex biological processes across radically different physiologies. As her final year at Galactic University approached, Zara reflected on how far she had come. She had arrived as an outsider, determined to prove humanity's worth. Now she was an integral part of a community that spanned the cosmos. During a quiet moment in the university's arboretum, surrounded by flora from 1,000 worlds, Zara was approached by Dean Asilox. "Miss Chen," the dean began, his skin shifting through patterns of respect and affection, "I owe you an apology. When you first arrived, I saw you as an experiment, a test case for human potential. I never imagined you would become the catalyst for such profound change." Zara smiled warmly. "Thank you, Dean Zylox, but I didn't do this alone. Every being at this university played a part in our transformation. We all learned from each other." The dean nodded, his tentacles curling thoughtfully. "Indeed, and that is perhaps the greatest lesson of all. No species, no matter how advanced, has all the answers. It is only by coming together, by embracing our differences, that we can hope to unlock the true potential of the cosmos." As they looked out over the campus, Zara saw not just buildings and technology, but a living tapestry of diverse beings, all working together to push the boundaries of knowledge and understanding. It was a microcosm of what the galaxy could be, a place where differences were celebrated, where innovation arose from unexpected places, and where the spirit of discovery knew no bounds. The sun began to set, its light refracting through the university's crystalline spires in a dazzling display of color. Zara Chen, once an outsider, now stood as a symbol of a new era in galactic education and cooperation. As she watched the interplay of light and shadow, she knew that her journey, and that of Galactic University, was far from over. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, but together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future, bright with possibility, beckoned.